And we are live for a very special episode on the Panenka View podcast. A very happy Diwali to all our viewers. And I've got with me my fellow Arsenal Mumbai Supporters Club member, Kshitij. Hi, Kshitij. It's very
Hi,
good to
Prasad.
have you on the podcast. Finally, I should say.
Yes,
And very happy Diwali to you as well. But
wish you a very happy
as
Diwali.
for our fellow Gooners and everyone around the world, it's happy Diwala to you can say, because not a lot has been going right in these past few months, and there is a lot to talk about the issues, and especially after last night's meltdown. There were a host of
Yeah,
things. The VAR not going our way, the lack of creativity from open play, the club captain being booed by the home fans, and then taking off his jersey. So much to process. Lucas Torreira in tears, Lacazette fuming, liking a post that said Emery out. It's actually such a horrendous time at the club. But before we discuss all that, let's start first of all with the game, which ended 2-2. And especially after that start, where we got those two goals,
yeah.
did you expect that? Did you expect us to
Uh,
throw away that lead?
there's always an uncertainty with Arsenal, especially with this team, because there's no structure, there's no balance to this team. So after we score goals, there's always an expectation or there's always a fear in at least my mind that we'll concede at least one. And that did happen in the first half itself. Uh, it was reviewed by VAR again, that penalty, which I thought was a penalty. And
Hmm.
it, VAR was rightly brought in and the decision was overturned. But overall, there is a fear in my mind whenever we score that we'll
Hmm.
concede.
And I think this has been a theme of the past few months. I see that once we score, we kind of put our foot off the pedal,
Yeah,
and then the opposition comes into it, and then they somehow manage to get level. But in even in Wenger's worst season, we managed to play some very good attacking football and make the fortress home our fortress. But
yeah.
even teams like Victoria in the Europa League have come here and dominated. Is
Yeah.
that a is that a concerning sign? Because we are in October and we still have a long season to go.
It is a concerning sign, obviously, but like I said, there's no structure in this team. There are midfielders who are playing not in their positions. I feel uh, there's one out and out holding midfield player who should play week in week out with rotation with somebody against the so-called lesser oppositions. But
Hmm.
Lucas Torreira, as in DM, has to be playing in the Premier League week in week out. He gives us that balance.
Hmm.
Emery is trying to make Xhaka do play that sort of role, but Granit Xhaka is not really a kind of player who should be your deepest midfield player. He's not a
Yeah.
tackler. He's not going to bite in and win the ball for you.
And
Torreira does that.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's no structure basically, and that is the problem. We are too open in the midfield. Anybody can drive on, make a driving run of 50, 20, 15, 20, 30 yards, and just enter our half and our defensive third quite easily.
Hmm. Well, there's a very interesting point you made there, and that man is the center of all the attraction, the topic of discussion, because the VAR thing, that incident overshadowed the VAR thing, which we will get to later in the episode. But let's start with the incident, the
Yeah.
Granit Xhaka incident after being subbed on. And by the way, there have been some tweets from Boaz, the Gunner, who actually goes to matches, live matches. He said this has been a trend for the past couple of games that Granit Xhaka's substitution has been
Yeah.
cheered. So let's, one thing leads to another. Let's hear your thoughts on that.
Uh, I'll not the last couple of games. This has been happening since the last season, right?
Perfect.
So on Twitter, I saw a video, I think, which was from our trip to Atletico Madrid. So there were fans, Arsenal fans, chanting against Xhaka and calling him a fucking wanker and whatnot. I'm sorry to use a foul language, but that is the language that he used.
Hmm.
Uh, on the streets of Madrid. Imagine our own fans doing something like that to our own player, right?
Hmm.
That is not what Arsenal Football Club are about.
Hmm. Hmm. Correct. Yes. And And then you look at yesterday's incident,
Yeah,
and it's 2-2. I mean, the second goal is a 50-50. You can't blame him for or put the blame completely on him.
right.
But then let's talk about the number goes up, and um, the cheer begins, if I'm not wrong, because
It
there,
does. Loud cheers.
yeah, the loud cheers of him being subbed off. I think that
Yes.
with these years of abuse on Insta, his wife being abused, coins were thrown at his car yesterday.
Yeah.
Did he actually throw the armband? Did he throw the armband first?
See, so I was watching the game on television, right?
Yeah.
From what I saw at that moment was him not throwing it in disgust. That is not
Mm,
what I made of it personally.
mm, mm.
He removed the armband and threw it at Laka. He did not throw it. He just,
Yeah, Oba. Yeah,
yeah.
Oba, correct.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, Aubameyang. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah.
At Oba, and that wasn't a throw. I mean, he just casually threw it to him. And then he walked off, right? So I think the bigger problem there was people expected him to sprint off the field, right? When
Mm,
it is 2-2 and his team, him being the captain, his team drawing and giving away a two-goal lead. So people
mm.
expected him to sprint off the field, and the game to continue at the tempo that it was going.
And then the boos begin, and
Yeah,
then Granit Xhaka then is triggered, obviously, because of the reaction of the North Bank, and
yeah,
then he kind of says the F word and
yeah,
uh, goes off. Emery is there trying to shake his hand, but he
yeah.
doesn't. I think pats on the back something. He does something and he removes off his jersey. He doesn't throw his jersey, by the way. He doesn't throw his jersey and storms straight down the tunnel.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, throwing the jersey is not what I could see from the TV. I
Yeah,
think
no,
he
he didn't
dropped.
throw it. Yeah,
I personally think that he dropped the jersey on his way inside the dressing room at just the beginning of the tunnel. That is what I think.
yeah,
Uh, I also think that Xhaka's reaction wasn't ideal, right?
mm,
Uh,
mm,
because you do not expect your club's captain to react in that way, right? And I understand that fans booing him and being on his back constantly, him and his family's back, which is bad.
mm, mm.
I understand that completely, right? And that is not justified either. But his reaction is not something that I would have liked to see.
Correct, correct. I think it's a whole series of event, and that reminds me of Emmanuel Eboué,
It does.
who was subject to the same booing and
Yes,
cheering. I
yes,
mean, when he's off, and
yes.
he bounced back in style. But there's one more thing that is becoming and like we said, this is going on for the past few seasons now. Um, let's take a number of players that were booed. I mean, let's start Mesut Ozil, Mustafi,
Yeah,
Xhaka.
yeah,
Even the longest reigning manager, the man responsible for the whole Emirates Stadium was booed.
yeah.
And have the fans lost it? I mean, what is that the reactionary fan base does without even getting thinking about you know getting consideration, just going on jumping to the conclusion.
It is hard to say, I think. I mean, I personally can't make why, I mean, the reason for the reaction. Uh, it is really difficult to try and gauge and justify the fans' reaction. But I would say that it has been happening over the years. Uh,
Hmm.
like you said, Emmanuel Ebio, that was very bad.
Right.
That was the incident that came to my mind immediately after what I saw happening yesterday. Uh,
Hmm.
I think yesterday was one of the most unpleasant games that I've seen for quite a long time.
Yeah.
There was this incident, and there was there was the VAR controversy as well. Uh,
Hmm.
uh,
And
but it
yeah,
was very
we are getting there. And to be very honest, the VAR, the implementation, I think the way it is implemented is questionable, because you don't see because Zaha
hmm,
in Martin Atkinson's view dived, and
yeah,
he pulled out a yellow card, for
yeah,
which then the players started surrounding him, and then
yeah,
that led
yeah,
to VAR. But let's go to that third goal that Sokratis scored,
yeah,
and it clearly looked like a foul on Chambers. Three players,
exactly, exactly. It
taking
was,
him
I
to the
think,
ground.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was, I think, Milivojevic who actually shoved Chambers on the back. I am really surprised how how it was given a foul against Callum Chambers. I
Yeah.
couldn't see any foul in that.
I think bearing the guy who in the VAR room and Martin Atkinson and
Yeah,
the linesman was. I think everyone else thought that it was a goal. It should have been stood as a goal,
yeah,
and I got the 3 points. But here's one more thing: the VAR guy was a newbie. He
exactly.
was he was not a football referee before. I think we've
Yeah,
seen of him being in rugby and etc. etc. But that's where we go next, Kshitij, and
yeah,
that is that we are scoring via set pieces. How many goals do you remember in the past few games where we've scored via open play?
not
I mean,
many.
Aubameyang's Manchester, which
Yeah.
was again subject to the VAR check, and that was clear
Yes.
goal. By the way. But the main thing is what's with this set piece FC thing? What's
Uh,
happening there?
I think the last goal from open play that I remember from this season was Aubameyang scoring against Watford away. I think that was again Ozil threading a pass through to Maitland-Niles, who squared the ball to Aubameyang for a tap in. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Other goals apart from that have been from set pieces or from crosses. Uh, why this is happening? Because there's nobody who can in this squad except Ozil who can play at number 10. There are people who are there. We have many people who can play as a number 8 in the double pivot, uh, but not behind the striker, not in the hole between the midfield, the center midfield, and the strikers.
Hmm.
There's to me, according to me, only Mesut Ozil in this current squad who can play in that hole. And
True.
he's played what 140 minutes odd, and I think he's got 6 chances created or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah.
which is
Yeah, we had a post of him. There have been a lot of stats post of him saying that Ceballos 5 chances in 6 games,
yeah,
Ozil 5 chances in 70 minutes
correct.
against Watford,
Yeah.
and an efficient playmaker. You want your player to be efficient, but is this a ploy from the management to freeze him out of the squad, considering the wage bill?
Uh, Again, I mean, I can't say from sitting here. I mean, there are a lot of things that must be happening behind closed doors that none of
Yeah,
us are aware of, right? Why
yeah.
those things are happening, again, that is a question mark. But the logical thing that comes to mind is if we are playing Mesut Ozil 350,000 pounds a week, why not use him when you know that you cannot sell him before the transfer window or no
Hmm.
amount before the transfer window, right? So the
Hmm.
nearest transfer window that opens is in January, and there's still a couple of months for that to happen. Are you just going to waste the 350K a week, or are you going to try and utilize his talents and see how things go from there?
Hmm. Let's get a couple of questions on live chat.
Yeah.
And the first one is from Jay, who asked, will Xhaka play another game for Arsenal ever again?
I really don't think so. He might play because Una Emery likes Granit Xhaka. I don't see him playing in the coming weeks though, and definitely not with the captain's armband on his arm.
I think it's done. He's going to be stripped.
Yes.
He's going to be stripped. I mean, there's some theory that's going on that he is loved in the dressing room. He
Hmm.
is admired. The players voted for him as the captain,
Yes.
and knowing that the fans have made him a scapegoat. I mean, do I like Granit Xhaka? Maybe. I don't hate him. Do
Yeah.
I admire him as a player? No.
Hmm.
But will I boo my player after that? I mean, after that performance, no. Yeah, I think yesterday was not the day to boo him. I think agendas greater than reality is what's likely to be underlining yesterday.
Yeah.
But his actions are still unpardonable. I mean, if you the armband or the jersey, and what I feel is yeah, what
Yeah.
I feel
So
is done.
his actions are not justified for. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
that him going down the dressing room into the tunnel
yeah,
wasn't a good picture. But
yeah.
his I wouldn't say his action, that was his reaction, right?
Reaction.
And That was his reaction to the fans booing him, right? So the fans are criticizing him for reacting that way,
Hmm.
but they are not probably looking at themselves and their action, right? And that is a big thing, because 60,000 fans, although the crowd, the ground wasn't full capacity, there must at least be a 40,000 odd people in the stadium during that time, and let's say at least 30,000 odd, cheering him for taken for being taken off and booing him. So that is not something that any player would want to receive from his fans.
Well, it's a never-ending debate here, and currently the state is shambolic, to say the least. And there's one more question here: will Unai Emery be given the axe midway through the season?
So there was this David Ornstein article that came out today in the morning via the Athletic. It says that part of the board is backing Unai, and any decision about his departure from the club won't be taken during the season. And me personally, I'm not a big fan of sacking a manager midway through the season. Whatever has to happen has to either happen at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season. I mean, I'm not a big Unai Emery fan, right? It's been almost one and a half year now that he's been in charge, and I don't see a clear system that he has brought into the team. Playing out from the back is something that was really something different, that we could see at the beginning of the last season. But again, that has his faults, and one and a half season to try and make it as error-free as possible. I don't see any results coming from there either. So to me, Unai Emery, I think we should replace him, with all due respect to it, but it shouldn't happen during the course of the season.
And Kshitij, just a couple of more questions that bring to my mind before we end this, and that those are Frank Lampard's has implemented his philosophy at Chelsea from the result after that 4-0 at Old Trafford, and Brendan Rodgers found his starting 11, which, by the way, if you look at the games, he's put in a consistent lineup in there. Are those excuses okay that people are making, that let the first 11 come into play, let the defenders get fit, because we've seen the same blueprint every game, the opponent having lots of shots on target on our, and barely if a player doesn't perform, like if a Pepe doesn't have his moments, if an Aubameyang doesn't bail us out, then we fail. What do you say about that?
So regarding us facing a lot of shots on our goal is mainly down to a very open midfield that we have, right? So we have got a flat three that Unai Emery generally plays with Guendouzi, Xhaka, and either Willock or Ceballos, or when he plays Torreira, it's not in the DM position. He's asked to run around as well. So clearly there are three players who are trying to run across the field, who are trying to get involved and move where the ball moves. And there's nobody who's actually shielding the defense. I think that is a big concern, and that is one of the major factors why we are allowing so many shots on goal, because our center halves are not that strong. But if you don't have a shield in front of them who's trying to win the ball back, slightly higher pitch, you're more likely to face shots on goal and then concede more often.
So that's true. And on the philosophy, 4 points away from 4 points drift now of Leicester and Chelsea. Spurs and United behind. I mean, if you look at the state of United, Spurs, and Arsenal, I think that there will be the way things are going, there will be a scramble for the fifth and sixth spot going on, as Leicester and Chelsea look in for the top four. Well, there are a lot of things, but there's one last question, and I think we wrap up there. And that is regarding, how good would Freddie make, as an interim manager? And the last question, I'm going to let you answer this, and then I'm going to post the last question.
Okay. So Freddie seems to have a lot of connect with the players that have come in from the youth academy, and rightly so. He's worked with them during the last season, and they seem to, understand him, and he seems to get his message across successfully to them. Uh, Freddie, I have my doubts about Freddie Ljungberg being given the managerial position so early into his career. I personally think that he has a lot to learn before, because it is only what 3 months, 4 months as part of the coaching staff in the first team. I personally think that he has a lot to learn, of the first team business.
Perfect. With one final question that
Yeah,
is on the live chat, but
yeah,
also on, circulating on the internet, and there's it's always going to be a polarizing topic.
yeah,
Jose Mourinho's name is being tossed there, and he was at the box as the Royal in the main box with Raul
yeah.
Sanley midweek, or midweek,
Hmm,
and what are these links
hmm.
regarding taking over, and what why do you back this decision? If will Jose Mourinho ever be able to sit in the same spot that Arsene Wenger did after being disrespecting him for years?
I cannot see that happening. I mean, me not cannot see that happening. Meaning, I personally can't take it. I personally
Hmm.
cannot take Jose Mourinho managing Arsenal Football Club. Right? It is just that the hatred for the man, uh, and I personally just cannot fathom the fact that it could happen. And there are links to in the media that he could be the next in line. Uh,
Hmm.
but in football, you never know. Me personally, I don't want that to happen. Never.
Especially, after Nicolai Pepe's agent and Raul Sanley, he both are linked to the same agent as Mourinho. And
Yes.
you never say never in football, but there are
Not
views,
in
and
London.
there are hopefully there are better days in AFC, because last night was certainly not a night that any fan deserves,
Yeah.
and not to anyone. So it's been great having you, Kshitij, and for
Likewise.
these 22 odd minutes, and so good to have you share your views on what happened last night. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please take a closer look at the views being mentioned. Do not just go on to a player's social media account and start abusing. I mean, maintain that thin line between criticism and abuse. Don't go overboard, and certainly don't abuse a player's family, because life is more important than any thing. Well, until next time,
Definitely.
as you can see, the title that says "What's Going On at Arsenal" Part One, because we know we are going to have a lot of these go in the next few weeks, maybe, considering the hierarchy and the style of play and the protests from the fans, etc. Until next time, Kshitij, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you,
Here's
Prasad.
your signing out on the Panenka View podcast.